What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the BallGame podcast. I'm Chris.
I'm Matt.
We are going to give you guys our best bets for Wild Card Weekend. This is in place of our fantasy football start sits because the fantasy football season's over. So hopefully those of you who are watching our fantasy football start sits and showing love on those, come over to here and win some money on these wild card games. We went through every game on our full podcast, giving our full predictions and picks. So go check out the full podcast if you haven't already. We're going to go through every game, pick against the spread, and we each have one player prop that we really like for each game. So other than that, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, follow us on our socials, all that fun stuff if you haven't already. Getting right into it, the first game of Wild Card Weekend on Saturday at 4:30, the Chargers versus the Texans. The spread is the Chargers are favored by 2.5 points. I went with the Chargers and minus 2.5.
Yeah, it's not enough points for me to be willing to take the Texans. If you guys should go watch, there's going to be a video soon of the separately AFC and NFC wild cards, so you don't have to just watch the full pod if you don't feel like it. Those will be separated. I took the Chargers, and as I said, not enough points here, so I'm going to stick with the Chargers on the spread too.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think the Texans are going to be able to generate enough pressure against the Chargers O-line to be able to stay in this game. And that offense is just slumping right now. So.
They are struggling.
Yeah.
They are really struggling. And against a good defense, like, is this the one that you really get yourself right in the playoffs? So, I don't know. I'd safely side with no on that one, and that's why. So
yeah, in terms of the player prop, I went with Joe Mixon under 3.5 receptions in this game. He hasn't gone over that line in his last 3 games. He's only gone over that line 4 times total on the season. So, again, I think this offense is going to struggle. Joe Mixon isn't really that much of a threat in the receiving game, not like he used to be anyway. So, yeah, Joe Mixon under on the receptions.
Yeah, I took something crazy. Chris, this man's burned you before. And crazy enough, I'm going to go for it. He had a big Week 18, massive Week 18, some may say.
No one talked about it either.
Not at all. Not at all. It may have been this man's coming out party, and I hope that that is the case. I'm taking Quentin Johnston over 42.5 receiving yards. I have a feeling Ladd McConkey may see a bit of Derek Stingley in this one, and Stingley's had a great season. That defense as a whole has had a great season, and I think Quentin gets loose for one. Just one. That's all it really takes with him, so over 42.5.
Moving on, the next game on Saturday, we have the Steelers at the Ravens Saturday night. The spread is Ravens minus 9.5.
Divisional game in the playoffs. Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Tomlin, come on, against the Ravens. This is Lamar's kryptonite. 9.5 is too many. I'd still take the Ravens to win the game, but 9.5 is too many. I'm taking the Steelers in their spread.
Yeah, 100%. I'm taking the Steelers in their spread too. Me and Nick were talking about it at work yesterday too. I'm low-key on our predictions, I picked the Ravens, but the more and more I think about it, I
totally see a Steelers upset.
I can't believe that this is the biggest spread of the week. I think that's insane.
I thought so, too.
I think that's insane. I think this is a team
I'm surprised the Bills-Broncos isn't significantly
and I know
more.
this is a different Ravens team and a different Steelers team than earlier on in the season, but this is a team that beat them already.
Yep.
Like, it's insane that this is a 10-point spread. So, yeah, I'm definitely taking the Steelers and their points. What do you have for your player prop?
For my player prop, I decided to take Mark Andrews over 44.5 receiving yards in this one. It's seeming more and more by the day Zay Flowers may not be playing in this one. And I think we got a watered-down version of Mark Andrews in the regular season, and this is the reason. They're saving him for the playoffs. So I think Mark Andrews goes off in his first playoff game, and, this is the time for him.
100%. Hopefully Mark Andrews is connecting with Lamar Jackson because I have Lamar over 1.5 passing touchdowns in this one. I think the Steelers are going to do everything they can to sell out on the run, so I think Lamar might be able to hit a few deep shots and, score some touchdowns through the air.
I know you're talking about the upset and stuff, but there's no excuse for this team to lose this game. Like,
oh, the Ravens?
No excuse.
No. I said that in the chat yesterday.
It's going to get ugly.
Yeah. It'll be nasty if they lose.
Like, this podcast will get so toxic.
Low-key, I'm rooting for the Steelers just so we have
content.
Sick content, honestly.
That would be an insane.
Yeah, it'll get nasty for Lamar.
Insane video. Yeah, I agree.
Next game, we talked about it. The Broncos at the Bills, 8.5-point spread. The Bills are favored in this one. I took the Bills minus 8.5 here.
8.5 is so much.
It's a lot of points
for a great defense too in Denver. I think this is the first one where we're going to go against each other. I don't think it's a blowout. I think it stays relatively close. I'm taking the plus 8.5 for the Denver Broncos. That defense is that good. I know Josh Allen has just been a man on a mission this year, but I think the defense keeps it close enough to where 8.5 is a lot of points. So
It is a lot of points. I think they can win by 2 scores. So we'll see what happens. So in terms of the player prop, I took James Cook over 8.5 receiving yards. I just think this line is just way too. I mean, James Cook could do that. That takes one play for James Cook to do that, especially with the type of routes he runs. Like the Bills' offense, their running backs when they run routes, they're not just running like swing routes. They run routes down the field. James Cook could break off a 40-yard reception any given play. So I think 8.5 is just way too low for James Cook in terms of the receiving.
yeah, so I took an alternate line for this one. I took Khalil Shakir more than four receptions. So 4+ receptions for Khalil Shakir. I mean, the guy barely lines up outside, which is a good thing because you want to avoid that man in Pat Surtain. I think he's going to be heavily involved in this one in the slot, although the Broncos also have a great slot corner. It's tough, but I think Khalil Shakir is going to be the guy in this game for Josh Allen. So,
yeah, 100%. Next game up, move on to the NFC on Sunday in the afternoon, I guess, 4:30. The Packers at the Eagles. Spreads 4.5. Eagles are favored.
And it's fishy, bro. It's fishy. Because Jalen Hurts, man, this hasn't thrown a football in basically 16 days now. I mean, because you're not allowed to do anything when you're in concussion protocol. So I hope Hurts is very healthy for this game. Don't get me wrong. But because of all that, it's going to be a close one at the very least, and I'm taking the 4.5 points for the Green Bay Packers. Still think the Eagles win outright, but I think 4.5 is a bit much, especially when you involve number one, week 1. I know we said that's fake, but still it was a 1-point game or 2-point game. And Jalen Hurts hasn't thrown a football in a while. So I think it's going to take at least a half for them to get themselves going. So
yeah, 100%. The Eagles overall this year have struggled in the first quarter offensively too. So you combine that with a quarterback who hasn't thrown a football in 2 weeks, I think they're going to struggle out the gate. I could see the Packers getting off to an early, 2 touchdowns. If the Packers offense comes out and does what they have to do, they could get out to an early lead, and the Eagles could be playing catch up the whole game. So, yeah, I like the Packers to win this one outright. I said it on the pod. So, yeah, I'm taking the Packers plus 4.5. And
so what's the player prop for you?
Player prop for me, I took Jordan Love's alternate passing yards at 200. I think his line was at like 218, something like that. So I just took the 200. I think, same thing I said about the Ravens and the Steelers game. I think the Eagles are going to sell out to stop that Packers rushing attack. And I know Christian Watson's out, but the game plan for the Eagles defense is going to be make Jordan Love beat us because Josh Jacobs and that run game for the Packers has been so dominant all year. And I think Jordan Love's more than capable of beating them and getting 200 yards passing.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I decided to go with Saquon Barkley over 12.5 receiving yards. And the reason being, you're going to want to get Jalen Hurts in a rhythm early, if that's the case. I think you got to have a couple dump-offs to where you give your running back an opportunity to get him some easy yards, to get him some confidence in his first game back in a few weeks. So that's why I took Saquon over 12.5 receiving yards. I think it's pretty simple for me. So, all right, next up, Chris.
Next game up, Sunday night, the game of the week. The Commanders travel to Tampa Bay to play the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are 3-point favorites in this one.
Well, you and I have been on the podcast saying that we think the Commanders are going to win. So, I mean, 3-point underdogs, that's an easy one for me. Not only do we pick the Commanders outright, we get 3 points in this one too. So, yeah, absolutely, I'm taking the Commanders +3 going to Raymond James in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I don't really need to say much here. Commanders +3. It might be the lock of the century. Honestly.
I completely agree.
Yeah. In terms of my player prop, I think this one's a lock too. I think his line is at 48.5, if I remember correctly. But I took Jaden Daniels alternate rushing at 40 yards. Since, I don't know, like the last 4 weeks or so, they've just been upping his rushing volume every week since he's kind of recovered from that rib injury. I mean, he didn't play the full game last week against the Cowboys, but the week prior against the Falcons on Sunday night, he had 16 rushing attempts. He went over 100 yards.
Yeah, he went over 100.
They've been upping his rushing volume every week. I think 40 is just it should be easy for him. The Buccaneers
Yes.
aren't a great team in terms of stopping quarterback scrambles either. So, yeah, I think Jaden Daniels 40 rushing yards is a lock.
For me, I thought this one was pretty easy, too. I took Terry McLaurin, 50-plus alternate receiving yards. I mean, I think the Buccaneers secondary is decent. It's not great. Terry McLaurin has been one of the best wide receivers all year and has a clear connection with Jaden Daniels. And I think in their first playoff game together, Jaden's going to go to him a whole lot. So 50-plus for Terry McLaurin.
And then the final game is Super Wildcard Weekend. Another game where you could make the argument this is the game of the week. I'm super excited for this one. The Vikings travel to LA to play the Rams. The Vikings are actually 1.5-point road favorites in this one.
We have a 6 slate, by the way. This is going to be a lot of fun for Wild Card Weekend. I hope they're all bangers of games. We also, again, hate to give it away, but we took the Rams. So, I mean, I'm going with the 1.5 points, especially because I took them outright. So I think the Rams get this one over an a relatively inexperienced Vikings team in the playoffs in terms of their quarterback especially. The book was out last week on Sam Darnold, as you said. Put pressure in his face and the guy may crumble. Sean McVay is too damn smart to let that shit happen. I'm taking the Rams and plus 1.5.
Yeah, and I'm also taking the Rams plus 1.5. You pretty much hit everything on the head. I think the Rams win this one outright. It's basically a pick 'em with the spread. And like I said, McVay was watching that game last week. The blueprint's out. The jig is up. Like, there's a blueprint on how to beat this Vikings team. Sean McVay's too experienced. Matt Stafford's too experienced. Cooper Kupp's too like these guys have been there, done that. The Vikings, they don't have the experience to hang with the Rams.
How scary would this Rams team be if Aaron Donald was still playing football, man? I just wish.
They'd be the best team in the NFC.
I wish he gave it one more year, bro. I really do.
If they still had Donald, they'd be the best team in the NFC. Yes. Bro, their defensive line would be
is already insane.
Literally like historic.
Yeah, it really would.
Like, yeah.
It really would.
In terms of the player prop, I went with Cooper Kupp over 4.5 receptions. I know it's been tough toenails for Cooper Kupp these last few weeks ending the season. He had a goose egg in the fantasy playoffs for a lot of people, costed them their fantasy playoffs. But the Vikings secondary has all year long allowed a lot of yards to wide receiver twos. Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp, like I just said, they've been there, they've done that, they have the playoff experience. So I think that connection is going to be on full display. Cooper Kupp's a guy who any given game could get literally 12 targets. I know Puka's a guy, but we've seen time and time again, Cooper Kupp could just get all the targets in any given game. So against a team that gives up a lot of points to a lot of receptions to the second option, I could see Cooper Kupp having a huge day.
Yeah, so I got to say, these lines are a little fishy to me, just a little bit, because of the fact that we've already seen the Rams beat the Vikings earlier this year. The Rams are at home, and we just watched the Vikings get absolutely destroyed by the Lions, and yet the Rams are still 1.5-point underdogs, and Sam Darnold's line is still at 265.5 passing yards.
That's a lot.
I'm getting a little scared of the whole situation. I almost feel like the books know something that we don't, which typically always happens. But because I see the 265.5 for Sam Darnold, because I saw what just happened last week with him, I'm gonna take the under on the Sam Darnold under 265.5. So yeah, it's pretty easy for me on that one.
All right, those are our best bets for Wild Card Weekend. Drop a comment down below with whatever your biggest lock is for this weekend, whatever play you're most confident in. You guys know we're not professional. What do they call it? Handicappers.
Yeah. I'm not guaranteeing you that any of this is gonna hit.
I'm gonna be straight up. I bet with my heart, not my head, more times than not. Like I bet for fun. I don't bet because I'm good at it. So we're not telling you guys, these are absolute locks. There's no chance they miss. You must ride our picks, whatever. If you like the picks, ride the picks. If you don't like the picks, take the opposite.
Yeah,
normally that's the way to go.
If you like some of them, take some of them. Yeah. I mean, you're not forced to do anything that we do. The odds are ridiculously long, so trust me, they're probably not going to hit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's it's going to be a fun weekend. So just enjoy football as we always do. But playoffs is here, and be happy about it. Let's throw a party. So
yeah. So like I said, comment down below your biggest lock for Wild Card Weekend. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. Check out the full podcast. All that fun jubble. Subscribe. I think I said that already.
Yep. Follow us on all of our socials.
Yes, that's the last
There's
part.
the last
Follow us
part.
on all our socials. And with that,
ball game.